Welcome back to the California Music and Innovation Summit 2021. The next panel, I like it a lot. We talk about music and technology the last 3 days and about technology. And today we in this panel will talk about low technology. The panel, Digital Safari on Sustainability, Low-Tech Tips for Ecological Live Music Events. This panel will be hosted by Juliette Olivares, Project Manager at Live DMA, and the panelists are Ailey Maruyama, working at Pulse Transition Network, and Marjan De Wolf, a business management and European project manager at Music Club 4AD. Guys, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. And welcome to the panel, Digital Safaris on Sustainability, Low-Tech Tips for Live Music Events, for Sustainable Live Music Events. First, a thank you to California Music Tech and to Court Circuit, Live Music Association for the Wallonia-Brussels region for the invitation to this conference. So as you can see on your screen, I am Juliette Olivares. I work for Live DMA, a European network for live music associations. And I'm here today with Ailey Maruyama from Pulse, a Flemish association for ecological transition in the cultural and education sectors. So hello, Ailey.
Hello.
And please also meet Marianne De Wolf, business manager and head of European projects at 4AD Music Club in Dixmude, Belgium. 4AD, hello, Marianne. And just
Hello.
to say that 4AD is the first carbon neutral music venue in Belgium. We are here today to discuss a little the themes of ecology in the live music sector, notably through a common project that we have between Live DMA and Pulse called the Digital Safaris on Sustainability, which you will learn more about in the minutes to come. We will also present during this panel some tips for ecological live music events, tips that Marianne and her team at 4AD enact and that we, Ailey and I, were able to collect from various music venues in Europe thanks to the digital safaris. We decided for this conference to focus on the low-tech and DIY, do-it-yourself aspect of organizing sustainable live music shows, because we wanted to show that it is possible to do things differently with the financial, the human, and technical resources that you have at your disposal. Of course, new technologies may have a role to play in the ecological transition, but by simply applying the concept of refusing, reusing, recycling, and transforming, we hope to convince you that you can do certain things differently with few efforts. And for this, the experience of our panelists will be very precious today. So first, to start, I want to ask you both, Ailey and Marianne, a few questions about your organization more in detail, what you do, and also what do you think is the role of culture in transition. So Ailey, please, can you tell us more about what is Pulse and what are its philosophy and values?
Hi, thank you. It's difficult because to do it in a short time, and it also cost me. I've been working at Pulse now for 2.5 years, and explaining it in 2 minutes, it's difficult. And it took me 1 year to understand what Pulse is, so bear with me. So we are a network organization that connects cultural organizations, wants to experiment with sustainable alternatives. And who wants to experiment with self-sufficiency and cultural activism at its core. We work B2B, so we work on an organizational level, and so we don't work with citizens and individuals. Pulse is a bottom-up network that was founded by several players in the cultural scene in Flanders, who are at the forefront of sustainability in arts, culture, media, and youth. So these are all different scenes that we try to connect with each other and inspire, activate, and motivate to do something about sustainability. We are not a consultancy office, nor do we have all the expertise, but we have a huge network with key players that are at the forefront of these transitions and who wants to share their experience with the network. How does this work in practice? So we connect, inspire, and activate our network by collecting inspiring stories and sharing them on our website and our newsletter. We have websites with tools, tips, and tricks like the CO2 calculator, water efficiency, sustainable cups, and so on. So we did all collect them on our website. And what we also do is bringing people together, bringing organizations together through the Trefdag. It's one of our biggest events that we organize through the safaris, but we will discuss that later on. Through fora that we organize regionally in Flanders and so on. And we also try to do very hands-on things like our do tank instead of a think tank. We try to do stuff hands-on. And so, yeah, and our digital blind dates. So we're doing a lot of digital things since the whole pandemic happened. We try to shift in our minds. So that's actually, in short, I think what we do. And I hope it's clear. If you have questions, please ask them.
Yeah. Well, it was very clear for me. And well, thank you for this presentation. And it's indeed a very important work that you do in the backstage. As you said, the citizens, the individuals may not know that Pulse exists. It's the same for Live DMA, quite. So, but it's still very relevant and important to do this work. And yeah, I forgot to mention, but if you have any questions, please ask them and we will answer them at the end of the panel. I'm now turning to Marianne. Can you please explain us a little bit the history of 4AD? How come, well, I understand that 4AD tackled the ecology as a subject in the 1990s, so almost 30 years ago. Why did you do this and what do you do?
I'll start with presenting our venue first, our general organization. So we are 4AD, a small venue in the western parts of Belgium, in Dixmude, which is a really, really small town, only 8,000 inhabitants. We are also quite small in proportions. We have a venue for 250 capacity. We work with 10 employees and we have like 50 volunteers supporting us in our organization. We are a member of the Flemish Club Circuit, so the equivalent of Court Circuit. We organize concerts, exhibitions, movie screenings, theaters. We have a summer festival on different locations in the city. And next to that, we also do a lot of artist support actions. For instance, we have rehearsal spaces that we have for artists to rehearse. Bands can rent a venue. We do long-term residencies, and we have something quite special. We have our own hotel on the site. Our own accommodation, which is really nice in terms of long-term residencies or rehearsals for artists. And about our sustainable way of working, well, it's true that the club exists since '88, and we have since then a very strong. We have been very socially engaged since the very beginning. It was rooted in the 80s DIY scene. That's maybe part of it. We have examples of these early sustainable practices that still stand strong today. For instance, 100% vegetarian catering, which is already from in the beginning. But also other low-tech things like the use of rainwater, upcycling of old and used materials, the use of second-hand materials, and so on. And that's things we did back then, and we still do it. And we, at a certain point, we decided we needed some more guidance, and then we applied to a local charter of sustainable development here, which was initiated by the province. Province de Flandre. And from then on, it grew more serious for us because we got this external guidance, and it helped us a lot to set clear goals and to measure our impact. And yeah, we began to take it very serious at 4AD Ecology, and that's yeah, um, that's how we started to reduce our emissions. We did some investments, but next to these more costly things, we also continue to implement all these low-tech DIY, this DIY approach. And maybe we can talk about that later on and give some examples of that.
Yes, 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 we will. Thank you, Marianne. I'm always very much impressed about the work that you do at 4AD and your way of thinking things. As you said, it's rooted in a DIY history, the venue, and well, that's super cool. I have a question for both of you, a quite blunt question to start on the subject. Do you think that culture can save the climate crisis? And do you think that venues such as 4AD will save the world?
Yes, of course. No, what is so inspiring about being in a network with a lot of with culture is that there's so much inspiration and imagination. So it's all about imagining a better world and to give that message actually towards politicians and other people in policy, not even policy, but also just the public in general. And I think they have a huge role that they play, and they are actually very active, which is really inspiring to see as a network. So yeah, I believe definitely that culture is in the forefront of this whole transition.
We do our best. I think as being part of especially the live music sector, we have an international reach. We have international artists coming by here, stopping by. Sometimes we have an international audience. We're not far from the French border, so a lot of our audience is coming from France. Well, at least it used to. Before the pandemic. Now it's a different story, of course. So I believe with this international reach, that's really something very important for us to take up this task to be like a sort of an engine for change. I think culture is really at the forefront of that. I believe we have the potential and the creativity. It's like you said, Ailey, we are good at being creative. We have to sometimes and work with limited budgets also, and trying to be as creative as possible with that. And I also think in terms of ecological actions that that's something we can do. So we're not going to change the world, but we can help making it a better place.
Yeah, and
in the long term.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, thank you really once again for the work that you do, and for I really like the phrase that you used, Ailey, imagining a better world. Culture can really change our habits or ways of seeing the world, and yeah, it's sometimes. Some people say that culture is the fourth pillar of sustainable development, and yeah, it can have a very important role to play in how we imagine the future. Maybe now let's dive a bit further into the digital safaris on sustainability. So it's a project that Pulse initiated and that we at Live DMA helped to bring to a European level. So basically, the idea of the digital safaris are to give live music professionals the opportunity to virtually visit live music scenes which work in an ecological way. So from catering to sustainable building to the mobility of audience or artists or the way venues manage waste, the digital safaris help live music professionals benefit from concrete tips on how to think and act in a sustainable manner in their organization. The visits take place online to a limited number of participants to ensure a privileged exchange. And Aili, I wanted to learn more about how was born the idea of organizing safaris, because it's a project that you initiated. And maybe, yeah, just tell us who can take part in them, who can
Yes.
organize one, who can.
Yeah, you covered a lot of the things that we do now, but the safari now that we organize together is very focused on the venues. But in back here, we go to venues, festivals, but also to cultural houses. We also visit projects and so on. So it's very diverse. We can even go to heritage, musea and so on. So it goes everywhere. But we just starting to do it like a couple of years ago. We started our first safari in Boomtown. It's one of also a very sustainable festival in our country. And we wanted to see how things work behind the scenes because we always hear from these venues and or places. It's like, oh, but how do they do this? How do they bring this in practice? And we started to think like, okay, let's go there really behind the scenes to see how they take matters into their own hands. Um, so yeah, and from there on, we started to think like, yeah, there's also way more venues than only Boomtown or festivals. You know, there are a lot of places we can go to, and so how can we show them? Just go there with a group of people. We always the ideology is to go there with a small group that is easy. It's also easy accessible because we also wanted to create like this safe environment that people can interact together. There is like that they can ask questions that they feel comfortable. Um, but it's not only about really, like you said, it's not only about showing how they work on sustainability, about the eco building, the food they serve, and the reusable cups, but it's also really about their philosophy, the interaction with the audience, their program, and it's the whole package. So we really try to focus on bringing that alive and also on the interaction part. And afterwards, normally before Corona, we also had after the safari, we did a lot of informal like drinks together, uh, just to have the mood. And we see that there's a lot of connections that's been given. You know, I think Marianne can elaborate on that further. But you see after a safari that there are a lot of people with questions and that they connect to with each other, and that there are maybe projects that can go in the future and so on. So yeah, it's a really inspirational thing that we still do until the day of now, until today.
Yeah, and that we now do together at European level and online, because yeah, if we understand correctly, you have the safaris that you did with
Yes.
lots of different organizations physically in Flanders, and the digital ones we do at European level. And Marianne, I think you experienced both kinds of safaris, the physical and the online one. Um, well, first question, why did you want to host safaris like that? And is there any difference between the two types?
Well, we did a live one, I think 4 years ago. It was posed with the question if you were interested, and yeah, of course we were, because it's really interesting to tell this story to co-professionals. The people that attended the safari, it was like Eileen said, it was a small group, which was good in terms of interaction. It's a very laid back atmosphere. People ask direct questions. You can explain everything. You can show things into detail, which is of course more difficult in a digital way. You have the aspect of sharing some food, some drinks afterwards, and we found that a very positive experience. And afterwards, we stayed into contact with the people who visited us, and we exchanged experiences. So we broadened our network through it. So that was really nice. with the digital one, we were the first ones to do it. It was quite challenging because how to present your venue to an international audience in a digital way without making people, or it can be boring. You have to take care of a good flow, the transition between rooms, places. It should be fluently, but also you want to show details of your building, which is quite difficult, of course. And the safaris are very DIY. That's why we decided to make a small video as a starting point. So we put a lot of information in this 2-minute video, and that was like then we were sure that people would have seen our building in the right way with the proper light and so on. And then we went into details on different parts of our actions with different people of the staff in different places in the building. And so we tried to give it an organic and interesting scope. But it was quite challenging. We had to rehearse a lot. I remembered it was also in COVID time, so it wasn't always that easy. But we really liked it because what the difference between the live one and the digital one is, of course, that a lot of people attended the digital one. I'm not sure if I right, Ailey, but I think it was over 40 people from all over Europe, which was really nice. We got a lot of questions. We felt that with this digital one, our reach was far more broader, of course. And the good thing that came out of it afterwards is we got a lot of questions. We still do. And for instance, this week we got an invitation or a question from 4 venues in Bordeaux. One of them had attended the safari, the digital one, and they want to come with their staff for 2 days next year and come and visit our place and ask us everything, I don't know, for 2 days about our building, our infrastructure, also small actions, everything from A to Z. I think they want to, come visit us if it's possible. So I think that's really super cool, and that's impossible by doing this in a live way because because of travel restrictions and everything, and you do not go abroad to visit a venue normally. So we were very happy that this digital safari initiated or triggered some people to really take this step and and come visit us. So that's
I also want to add a little thing that because we're all it's about like DIY and easy accessible, and also in our core post-transition network, and I think a lot of the organization attending try to have sustainability at its core. And it's kind of like not like deciding for us not to travel anymore by plane. By bringing this safari digitally, it's so much more easy. You can go to places that you couldn't have done. Now we've been just to Berlin, to to Grand Mix. Where was it again? Toulouse?
Tourcoing. Tourcoing, in the north of France.
Yes, I'm sorry. And we were gonna do next, in Tallinn or whatever. It's far, but we bring it all together just from our living room, and it's really nice to see how easy it's been done. You just have a mic, you have your smartphone. We basically filmed everything with our smartphone, and then have Zoom or other platforms. And it's really nice that we can show more of that sustainability, but it's also done through a sustainable way, like a digital safari, that you don't have to travel or lose a lot of time and money and cost. So
yeah, I definitely agree. And I'm really glad, Marianne, that you talked about the cooperation. And here it's all about European cooperation. and doing things, as you said, Ailey, in a DIY manner. Just to say very quickly that these digital safaris at EU level that we are doing, it's really a natural collaboration. Pulse came to us during the pandemic, the first wave, with this project. We thought at Live DMA it was really, really great. And well, we don't have any funding really for this. It's quite improvised. It was not planned in our strategy or whatever. We have already done 3 safaris together, and it's super cool. And yeah, as you said, it's a very low tech manner of doing things. You need some people, some connections, a Zoom account, a smartphone, and 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 some
Good, yeah.
knowledge, and that's it.
Wi-Fi.
A Wi-Fi, yeah. Well, I won't, but well, you understand it. It's quite. It was really a very yeah, a very natural way of working, and it's really also agreeable to have this. So, well, thank you a lot for your answers. Now, maybe we will dive more into the practical details, the concrete tips that we could learn from the safaris. Maybe as an introduction, we can watch a video from 4AD. And well, we will be right back after the video to discuss some things. So if we can see the video entitled 4AD, please. Oh, really? I sent it to Coralie yesterday. She told me she would forward it to. Okay, if you want. Okay, no problem. Well, well, as you will see in the video, 4AD does a lot of things. Marianne has already talked about it in earlier. There are a lot of actions they take. Well, as she said, in a DIY manner, really reusing things, upcycling, transforming things. And there are things also which need more investment and which need a little more technical, how can I say it, technical knowledge and infrastructure changes. My first question to Marianne is it expensive to engage in more sustainable ways of working in a music venue? How do you manage the finances of this?
Well, yes and no. If you look to our history with the venue, we started to work on the sustainable actions already a long time ago. The venue was rooted in this DIY scene, and back then there was no funding at all. So these first actions that we still do, they are very low cost. It was more a philosophy than a financial thing, and so I think you can do a lot of small stuff if you of course have the team and your volunteers behind it, which is of course super important. You don't always have to do the bigger things. What our philosophy is actually, if something has to be changed in our organization, or if we do something, and that can be everything from artistic to technical to infrastructure to catering to our bar, we always ask ourselves, what is the most sustainable solution? And do we have to buy something new, or can we see if we can recuperate things? So it's always every purchase that we make here, big or small, it's always the question that we ask ourselves: Do we need to purchase it? Is it really necessary, this investment, or can we do it in another way? Is there a second-hand option? Can we make something ourselves? And yeah, that's basically, I think, the main philosophy behind it here. So it doesn't really always have to cost money. We did do some more expensive actions in the framework of demo, which is maybe interesting to mention here, since we have to wait for the video. Demo is a European cooperation between Flemish, Walloon, and North French partners, and it's all about experimenting in the live music sector on these sustainable themes, as well as in terms of energy, but also social actions, economical actions. Within this framework, we received funding from the European Union for 4 years now. The project 5, it's been prolonged with the pandemic, but the project is ending now in September, and it was really interesting because it gave us a possibility to experiment a little bit with things that we wouldn't experiment with because they cost money, of course. One example is the reusable water bottles we started to work with. Some of the partners did an experiment with it on stage instead of the plastic ones, the disposable ones. We did a research on it, and then we experimented with the Dopper version, so the water bottles actually. We fill them with tap water. We give them to the artists, and the artists return them mostly after the show. We rinse them, we reuse them. We have a stash. Now here, other venues also followed the example within the demo network, and it really worked out fine. The artists were very positive about it. They weren't reluctant to use them, which was nice. And I think, yeah, for now, I thought that also the French venues, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's also been, in France, there's also been the idea of working with these water bottles, I think in Fedelima. Or,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you will know more about it. So that's really nice. That's something, yeah, funding can give some opportunities to experiment with more expensive stuff. But it doesn't always have to be these kind of actions. For instance, I'm thinking other more low-tech actions. Yeah, the vegetarian catering, it's one that's always coming back. For us, this was quite normal already from the beginning. And we communicate this to our artists. So all backstage catering is vegetarian. And there is, if there's really a strong question for meat, then we will, of course, we will not. We will try to, how do you call it?
Yes, if I may say, what I really like about it's like, if I understand well, meat is an option, and it's something about
it's
changing the norm. Like before, the option was, do you want a vegetarian meal? And now it's the option is you want meat, and the norm becomes vegetarian meals. And yeah, that's really really clever.
Yeah, I think for 90% it's vegetarian always, and it's okay because we trained our cooks, all volunteers, and we give them recipes. We inspire them to make sure that these meals are very diverse, and you don't actually miss the meat. It's there's lots you can do with vegetables and to make it a really good meal. So we don't have any complaints about that. Also, with the artists, or it's really very seldom that someone is complaining the lack of meat or wasn't well informed before. We also made a charter. It's something you could see in the video as well, I think, which we sent to all managers, the tour managers, and in this charter we explain our sustainable actions, the vegetarian catering, the water bottles, and so on. So we make sure people are informed. It's good, of course, that we have our own accommodation on site here, because in the hotel and every room there's also this sustainable charter hanging on the doors. And so people really know in what environment they are in, and what the philosophy of the venue is. And most artists are very positive about it.
Yeah, and that's for the backstage parts, but also for the audience. I think it's important to have communication about what you do. I know of a festival in France, for example, about the eco cups. You know, we found it everywhere now, and they decided, they thought, well, we do eco cups, we produce plastic every year for our festival, but that's not sustainable. So now what we will do is we will ask the audience to bring all the eco cups that they have at home and to share them with all the other audience. So the festival doesn't have to produce new eco cups. And I don't know about like DIY tips or really simple things you can do for the audience. I don't know, Aili or Marianne, if you have other examples. Um, um, Maybe about also social actions, because we're talking a lot about ecological uh, things, but social sustainability is something very important as well for you, right?
Yes, it is. Although I think that the French venues have a stronger tradition in it, and stronger actions than we do. But it's also something that we work on. And for instance, we have uh, for audience in difficulties, they pay a lot less. There's this thing called the Uitpas, which is something that exists in Flanders. And actually anyone can ask or buy one. And you can use it to go to concerts. But if you are in a more vulnerable position, you can use this same card or pass to have to pay less for your entry tickets.
Mm.
But by making this pass accessible for anyone, and it's for everyone, it's the same one, you don't make a difference between, you don't see the difference. So when people come to the box office in the evening and they show their card, there's no difference between person A or B, although person A paid less for their ticket than person B. So these are small things that we do, and we participate. And luckily, it's now initiated by Flanders. But yeah, there's a lot you can do. I think the French venues are very strong in cultural actions, working with vulnerable audiences, young people, people with disabled people. What I really like is that the French venues, they really work on welcoming people in the venue, making sure that it's accessible to everyone, adapting the websites to people that have
Uh,
not good, yeah,
Visual
visual
disabilities.
disabilities. I've heard of volunteers learning sign language, all of these things. I think that's really cool, and that's something we can still learn something from here in Flanders. So
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I'm. Unfortunately, we only have like 1 minute left before we must stop. But yeah, just to say that it's also, well, French venues, of course, do a lot of great things, but some other things happen in other countries. I'm thinking notably in Germany of a venue called Feuerwerk, which does smartphone parties for refugees, where refugees can come with a song that they like, and they pass it on. A professional DJ plays it, and so it's a way to trigger exchanges and to also for the people who hear their favorite song in a professional venue. It's also a very valorizing, and I think that these kind of actions, and unfortunately we're missing time and we have so much to talk about, but these kinds of actions can save the world and can change the world. And so just to say, Marianne and Ailey, thank you a lot for what you do, for what your organization do. um, Unfortunately we have to stop now, but I don't know if you have like a last few words, a last message to pass on to the audience.
Mm, yeah, I just wanted to add on the whole social thing. What really is important also now that we see a movement where with venues and everything and concerts or art houses where the curation is led on by other backgrounds. So if you want to change something on higher level, or if you want to make it more accessible, where we think, okay, wow, let's give the programmation to the youth, let's give the programmation to refugees, let's give the programmation to people with other backgrounds, so that they really have the involvement that they deserve and that they can also give back towards other groups and so on. So I think that's a very important thing to include them in the board and to start from inside. So a lot of organizations are doing it here too, like the Vodots, for example, in Ghent, which is a very interesting venue. So yeah, and thank you so much for this platform, and yeah, maybe see you soon in the network.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, Ailey. Marianne, last words or not?
Yeah, there's so much I didn't talk of. Maybe you can put a video or something online, so you
Yeah,
can.
it's very inspiring.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
The smaller actions we do, and I have one general tip, and it's start with small actions. Start at a really bottom up approach. All these small things together do great work, I think. So, and there's a lot you can do. So I hope we could have inspire you today.
Yeah, it's very inspirational words. And well, thank you both. Just to say that the digital safaris are recorded and you can find them on Live DMA website and Pulse website as well. So maybe if you want to learn more about 4AD and the other venues who do things differently in Europe, go to our website, Digital Safaris on Sustainability. A big thank you, Marianne, again, and Ailey for this moment. It was really interesting and gives us hope on the future. And thank you to California and Court Circuit for the invitation as well. And goodbye.
thank you.
Thank you, Juliette,
Thank you.
Ailey, Marjan. We have the video with for Music Club 4AD video. Do you want to pass it now or not especially?
To conclude, yeah, well,
Yeah, to conclude?
we can.
Okay, but
Yes.
before the conclusion, I will just say thank you to you guys. It was really interesting. And so I hope to see you soon. Next panel at 3 p.m. is on Smart Venues and Festival, the new customer journey. So to conclude, we pass the video, the Music Club 4AD video. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Welcome in Music Club 4AD. In 1988, some young punks and over-enthusiastic music lovers founded a small club in Dixmude, a rural city in the heart of the World War I region in Belgium. They called it 4AD, after the independent and DIY philosophy of the British music label. As years went by, the small club became a full-scale music venue with over 50 concerts a year, movie screenings, exhibitions, a proper cafe, international collaborations and rehearsal spaces for professionals and amateurs. And the punk DIY spirit from the early days evolved into a profound, sustainable approach in everything we undertake. 70% of all water used is rainwater, electricity comes from our solar panels, furniture is upcycled, and all maintenance products are 100% ecological. Our bees deliver homemade honey and provide for necessary pollination, which is super important for biodiversity. Our artist catering is 100% veggie, and leftovers are consumed by these happy chickens. Our whole infrastructure is insanely acoustically insulated, as we reside in a quiet and residential neighborhood. A crowdfunding campaign provided the resources to help plant 30,000 trees in a city forest near Ostend. The idea behind it was to compensate audience transport CO2 emissions. We have a charging station for electric cars right next to our venue, one for e-bikes on our driveway, and our cargo bike is our company car and is made out of old flight cases. Our one and only 4AD hotel is now under construction, but it's quite unique. All international bands can stay here for the night in our eco-friendly infrastructure, also accessible for disabled people. Our cafe hosts a weekly local food market and is a hub for music lovers, with a sustainable selection of food and drinks. Our veggie croque monsieurs are nothing less than legendary. Our audience can get free earplugs, and we were the first venue in Flanders that introduced reusable cups back in 1999, and they're still standing strong. Not only our audience consumes their beverages in a sustainable way, while our artists are shining in LED lighting on our stage, they use refillable bottles with filtered tap water.